Captain Albatross here again with the Cipher Unlimited crew. We have our usual suspects of AD or Alpha Dean. We have Spigs18 or Anthony. And Dean, can you tell us a little bit about what might be happening tonight?
Yeah, well, tonight of all nights, this is probably the night we've all been waiting for. We got Monte Cook, none other than the man behind MCG and all the wonderful stuff that we do. Monte Cook is one of the most prolific personalities in the tabletop industry today. His resume is more like a laundry list. He's an innovator, an inspirer, an all-around cool guy. And I think our very own Spigs, otherwise known as Anthony, said it the best. And I quote, Monty has the illest pen game in the tabletop industry. I don't know many creators who have such a full house background. Monty's been with us since 1988, creating where he started out with ICE or Iron Crown Entertainment, moved on to TSR, transitioned to Wizards of the Coast. I mean, there's Mel Havoc Pressed under his belt. There's Atlas Games Penumbra. There's D&D Next, which was the ground, the basis for 5e, which everybody loves so much. And then, of course, not without any ado, there's MCG, Monte Cook Games, the place that has brought us all to where we're sitting tonight. And, you know, there's No Thank You Evil, The Strange, Invisible Sun, you know, and of course, Numenera, and what we're getting ready to sit down and talk about tonight, The Darkest House. Wow. Monty, welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thanks for having me. Wow, you read off all those companies and everything, and it makes it sound like I can't hold down a job.
It just shows that, you know, you're in high demand. Everybody wants a piece.
That is definitely true.
Cool. Well, I'm happy to be here. We at MCG love you guys. I can't keep telling you that, but there you
go. You know,
All
this is usually, you know, the part of our show where we ask our guests, you know, to do a little introduction and, you know, what they do in the gaming industry. But for some reason, you know, I don't think that our audience or anybody for that matter doesn't know who you are. So let's kind of like dive right into it. You know, MCG, you guys are in the middle of the latest Kickstarter. You know, this is truly an original digital experience called The Darkest House. Could you tell us a little bit about this project and how's the project doing so far on Kickstarter?
Absolutely. Here, I've got the Darkest House here behind me. So the Darkest House is, well, really there's two things to talk about when it comes to the Darkest House. There's sort of the story and the flavor and the adventure that you're going to have, but there's also the interface, and both of them are very new. So this is a digital-only product. It's meant to be played over Zoom or Roll20 or any of those kinds of things where, you know, we've all had to get used to doing here with the pandemic and everything. And so what it does is it makes it really easy to run this game. Everything that the GM needs is all on one screen. You know, you get a little map of a room or something, and you click on any of the objects in the room. You instantly get text that tells you, you know, so if somebody says, hey, I'm going to go check out the bookcase, you just click on the bookcase and it tells you exactly what they're going to find. It's all, you know, linked, so it's really easy to move around in there. Everything you need, all at your fingertips, really. And what we wanted to do was make something that everybody could play, not just Cypher System people, not just 5e people, but whatever. So it also made sense that the Darkest House kind of converts you as you come in. It changes you. It makes you adapt to its rules, right? Because the Darkest House is this really corrupt, haunted house, I guess I'll say, although it's much more than just a haunted house. But it is, so it has its own unique system, which is really simple, and we provide conversion notes that'll make it so that you can bring in your Cypher characters, your 5e characters, your Call of Cthulhu characters. Just, it's Shadowrun, it doesn't matter. This really simple way to, basically what you do is you compare your character to sort of the various ends of the spectrum of whatever game you're playing, right? So if it's D&D, right, you got first level characters, you got 20th level characters. And if you're a 6th level character, you kind of know where you are on that spectrum. And it tells you exactly then what that means in the house system. And everyone would go by that, right? And so the exciting thing is that you can actually even take, somebody's Pathfinder character and somebody else's Cypher character, and you can have them go on an adventure together in the Darkest House because they're going to be using the same mechanics. It's a very simple, straightforward thing because, it's very narrative, very story based, very character based, but not in a like statistics kind of way, but in like a, this is the kind of thing where you're going to go into a room in the Darkest House and you're going to confront this entity, and it's going to like force you to give it your most recent nightmare, right? And so you're going to then, as the player, just have to describe your character's most recent nightmare, and those kinds of things that are going to flesh out and embellish your character even more, in a story sense, in a narrative sense. Maybe things you never really thought about, right? What's your most horrific childhood memory? What's your best childhood memory? These things are going to come out in the Darkest House, and that's one of the reasons why I love it so much.
Yeah, we're all super duper excited to hear all that. Like, there's just so much to take away from what you just a little bit you just said. Like, it's sparking so much, like, in my imagination, where we can take things in the Darkest House. It's exciting.
Cool.
Me and Dean were lucky enough to be part of the playtest, so we got to experience the Darkest House, firsthand. And when we did our review video or our walkthrough video, my first impression was wow. I think this is gonna innovate the way people view online adventures, not only from the player standpoint, but the ease of use, all the tools you're giving a GM to be able to, give you the mood and feel that you're going for at a click of a button. So it's totally innovative. I'm curious to see if other companies are going to look at this model and go, oh, hey, we got to step up our adventure game.
I hope so, right? Because I'm sure, like a lot of you guys, I've been running a lot of games online, and it can be a challenge, right? You got players to look at on your screen, but then you got notes and whatnot, and maybe you got a couple of books open on the table, and it's just a lot to do all at once. And so we wanted to make that a little bit easier. Plus, it does things like I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead. You finish what you said. I just have a quick question, kind of in the same vein. If that's all right with you.
Yeah, I was just going to say, the other thing that I really wanted to do is I wanted to think about the things that actually it's easier to do online than it is in person, and really capitalize on that. One of the things that I really like doing online is sending individual players, some kind of direct message, whatever format you want to, whatever platform you're using. And I think that that's really fun. And so the Darkest House has that built right in, where we've got these things that you're going to send to individual players, and it's just, you just click a button, and you automatically copies that text, and you're ready to send. So we've made that really easy. And same with showing people artwork and stuff like that too. We've made it really easy to just transfer that to whatever platform you're using. But you were going to say something, Dean.
Yeah, I'm just going to throw it out there, Monty, because you've already done something that's it's kind of unprecedented in the way that you presented this first product. And my thought process is, or my question is, could we see something like this as a full-on support system for a Cipher system? Because, if you just offered something, like we have D&D Beyond, and we've got Roll20 and so on and so forth, but just to have those innovations be able to plug and play, the Darkest House could grow massively along with what, you offer already through MCG.
Yeah.
It's something that we're talking about, and a lot of it has to do with how well it feels like the product is received, and if people like it, people are using it. I can definitely see ways to make it usable in in any setting, right? In any Cipher setting, in any you can do it for any game, and just the ease of which you can give access to all the different information that a GM needs at once is really useful. And so we don't have any plans for it right now, but I can see it happening.
Nice.
You had mentioned that you can be able to port. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you had mentioned that you guys are going to be able to port characters from multiple game systems. Is there a list of game systems that you're able to port from? So if someone, say a Pathfinder player, will they be known like beforehand, hey, I could carry over my characters?
There is a list, and that list is any game you can imagine.
Hey.
I like that sort of list.
Because the conversion system doesn't say, okay, now if you're using Shadowrun, here's what you do. If you're using D&D, here's what you do. It's universal, right? It tells you how to look at whatever game system you're playing, sort of figure out the way to measure your character. You guys are Cypher players, right? You'll be very familiar with my love of rating things from 1 to 10, right? And essentially that's what you're doing, with a lot of advice and hand-holding and whatnot. We'll explain how to do it. And that will then translate to how your character works in the Darkest House. So it's a universal translation system. Like I've referred to it as the Rosetta Stone of the role-playing game systems. I mean, but I'll be honest, you end up with almost, depending on the game you're playing, you almost certainly end up with a simplified version of your character that will capture it'll capture the flavor of the character, but it might not be quite as nuanced. But the idea is that you're playing it in this specifically very narrative, character-based thing, and you're only doing it for the Darkest House. So, you'll get all of your various tiny special bonuses on your fireballs or whatever. You'll get that when you're done, or when you leave.
Yeah, I absolutely got that feel in the playtest. I got to play the sorcerer, and it absolutely felt like a 5e character.
Cool.
I had my spell slots. I had, it felt like I could see the conversion, and it still felt like the character that I had originally, or originally came from. So I absolutely could see what you're talking about there. I'm super excited for that.
Well, really, like most special abilities, like spells and I don't know, superpowers and everything, like if you have the D&D spell invisibility, there's no reason there's nothing to convert, right? Invisibility turns you invisible for whatever, 10 minutes, or I don't remember what the duration is, and so people can't see you for 10 minutes. You don't need mechanical conversion for that, right? We all know what that means. Oh, people can't see you.
Oh man. No, but it's awesome to hear that you'll be capturing the essence of a character basically in this transitional from their base system into the Darkest House, and I think that's really what most people want, is to just feel like they're playing that character, not necessarily have all the little tidbits of the bonuses or abilities or whatever, just as long as they feel like it's that character.
That's absolutely what I went for, right? So if you take your Numenera characters, right, the Glaive is still going to be the best at combat, right? And the Nano's going to have a bunch of weird stuff they can do, and the Jack's going to have some special little skills and whatnot, but they'll just be simpler versions of that, simpler expressions of that.
You've done something here with the Darkest House that you did with Cipher System, Numenera, and I just want can you kind of speak to how you were inspired to figure out that elegance was so, how you were able to inject that elegance, because it is simple. It's that simplicity, just like you, but there's an elegant nature to how the characters and how everything is translated. Can you speak to that?
Well, I would say, again, and this applies to both Cypher and Darkest House, and other things I'm working on. Like it is just like it starts with something that everybody already does all the time, right? You rate things on a scale of 1 to 10, right? I mean, you don't even have to explain that to people. That's just so ubiquitous, right? You just like, oh, today is about a 7. If you just said that to someone, they would know exactly what you meant, right?
Yes.
And so starting there, it makes things really easy because you're latching on to something that people already understand, and then all you're doing is kind of attaching mechanics to that. You're saying, okay, you understand what 7 on a scale of 1 to 10 is. Well, here's what that means in terms of the dice that you roll or the number that you're shooting for or whatever. And I think that if people can understand that leap, then the whole thing becomes very intuitive, and that's what my thought process was.
Okay,
Awesome.
great. Al,
Also, before Al goes into his next question, I have one other question that constantly is asked on the server about the. You mentioned that it could be played on VTTs or multiple different virtual tabletops. It could also be played over a Zoom chat, right? Is there a specific like way do you have to transfer the information to, say, if you're playing Roll20 or you're playing Fantasy Grounds? Is there any additional work that needs to be done in order?
So Darkest House it isn't a VTT, right? Like the game master has the app, the Darkest House app, and the players just have whatever they would normally have. And so if you're just playing over Zoom, right, you're just listening to the GM, and you'll have, like, we provide like some there's with the Darkest House app, you get a couple of PDFs, and one of them is a GM's guide, and one of them is a guide for players. And the player's guide, will have like some real basics on how the system works and like a cheat sheet and stuff like that. And so that's what you'll have on your end. But you won't, as a player, you won't see the app, right? You'll get the texts, or you'll get the images or whatever, and you'll see the game master. And so from that point of view, no matter what format you're talking about, no matter what platform you're talking about, you're gonna it's gonna have whatever interface you're used to using. So if you're gonna use Roll20, you'll want to do everything that you normally do when you use Roll20, but you'll have all the stuff already, like maps and images and stuff like that, and you'll just drag them into Roll20, however that interface works. And the same with Fantasy Grounds, the same with all these different things, right? You'll have all the assets, so you can kind of just use it however you want.
Nice.
Thank you. I've actually said that on our server several times. I'm just happy I have it on.
Have it from the man.
That's how.
Yeah, as someone, and Anthony and Dean both know this, as someone who's personally very lazy when it comes to like gathering images and maybe sound bites or whatever have you, this sounds like a godsend. Like, you just click a link to copy the source material and you send it over to your players, and bing bang boom, you're done. You provide you all that stuff, and that sounds just freaking splendid for, again, someone who's extremely lazy such as myself.
Well, and you just reminded me, because of a stretch goal in the Kickstarter now, we're going to have sound as well. So there's some weird places in there where, like, there's sort of a haunted radio, for example, and now you're going to actually get to play to the players what they hear over that radio, and there's a I don't want to give too many spoilers, right? But there's a hallway where there's creepy voices, and now you're going to hear the creepy voices, and that's going to make it, I think, even better.
Yeah, stuff like that is. We spoke about this in our last interview when we spoke to Claire from the Infinite Construct. They were mentioning how just sound in and of itself, or music, or just soundscapes, just helps to basically add a level of immersion that wouldn't be there otherwise. It's so easy just to like play a sound bite or something, and then boom, they're in the moment. Like, it's fantastic.
Well, I mean, what you're saying is awesome, because I know at home, even before the pandemic, I would have my home game, and you got the nice big 65-inch, 75-inch screen TV sitting over there. So I would throw images up and sounds coming through the sound bar, and have these low things, and I'm sitting here on the laptop, but everything's linked. So now with The Darkest House, that's just to me seeing a whole nother level of that immersion. You could turn the lights down in the house, and you got these weird sound bites, if you got surround sound, you got your speakers hitting, you could do so many things. So
That's
yeah.
cool.
Al,
Yeah.
We've been talking about that a little bit, right? I mean, it's meant to be for online gaming, but if you had a setup even somewhat like what you're describing, Dean, you could totally do this as an in-person game. The
Right.
GM would just still have to have a laptop or whatever in front of him or her, and accessing the stuff. And then, but if you've got some screen that everybody can see, right, and then I don't know, maybe you're sending the direct messages via text or something, and everyone's got their phone, or
Yep.
However you want to do it. I think that could be really cool.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. I can see using it, like I said, I see innovation, I see possibility upon possibility with what this product is offering. I mean, I'm all for it.
Yeah, Sprink says this is exactly how he'll be using the product. This is an awesome prospect. Yeah, you have like a little spooky party game at home, basically, with role playing, a role playing party game with hiding speed. Either way, before we get even more sidetracked with all the cool details, could you, Monty, tell us a little bit about the design process behind designing something that's a purely digital experience, and how did it differ from designing normally?
Well, so it was a very different design, to be honest, because when you're designing something that's going to go ultimately into a book, even if you're also going to do a PDF, right? You're thinking about the print product, and you're thinking about like, okay, so this section this is going to be a 4-page section in the book. That means I've got X number of words, and we're going to have a couple of images in there, and that's going to take up some space. So I have to write a little bit less to make room for that, and blah, blah. Don't have to think about that at all, right? Like the text is just as long as it needs to be, or as short as it needs to be, or whatever, right? It's just exactly what it needs. And there's a lot of different other thought processes that have to go into it, where because at any given time the GM's only looking at this one screen. You don't want to have the GM constantly flipping around in a lot of different stuff. So you need to present everything in that one screen. And so it does mean that there's like some repetition, and that's, in a book, that would be just really annoying, right? You're just giving me the same thing over and over and over again. But in the app, it's just like a certain click. Like for example, there's some mechanics based in the house system where every time you roll for an action, you're going to roll a special die called the house die. And if the house die comes up with a particular result above the other dice, we have this thing called the house axe. Right. And the house, certain things happen that, are weird and whatnot, that the house takes actions against you. And then finally, it keys off of this one or more of these really sort of prominent characters in the house that then kind of come onto the scene. And that could happen in any room. Right. And so basically, we have to tell you how that works in every single room. But if it doesn't happen to you, then you're just not going to click on that link. And so it's not like wasted space as far as you're concerned, the way it would be wasted space in a book to just repeat that over and over again. So that's a different mindset to get into with design. And again, like the really embracing the things like the direct messages. So you set up encounters where there's a lot of times where someone will hear a scary noise or will get information that nobody else has, at least for a short time. Those kinds of things we design toward that. There's we tried to give a room, rather a map for every room, and so that was a creative experience, making sure that there was a nice way to map every single room. I will say that turned out to be impossible for there's a couple of rooms that are too weird and they're just like impossible to map in our 3D universe. But it's something that I worked on, so you got to expect a little bit of weirdness in there somewhere.
I can only imagine that. And I know it's a lot of extra work for you guys, but the replay value of having these having this extra stuff that doesn't get necessarily used in the first session is probably through the roof.
Yeah. We were just talking about that today. I figure, it's probably somewhere in the neighborhood of about, like, say, maybe 50 hours of play. If you go through the whole thing, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you'll, have 5-10 hour sessions all in a row, right? The Darkest House is the kind of place where you might go in, manage to get out, but then you have a reason to go back in. And I mean, that's the way I've used it in my games.
Yeah, that's what I see it as. I mean, I can see it very similar to the fact that, first of all, people's reactions are going to be different each time. The fact that player characters, may not make it to one room or such, and if they don't escape, and just I see the possibilities being endless, and the fact that it's narrative based and flexible, like most of your products, you can, for guys like us who like to innovate and ad lib anyway,
Right? Yeah. There's plenty of room for that. Of adding in some of your own stuff or there, I don't want to give too many spoilers, right? But there are some ways in which the players will actually be contributing to some of the rooms in a very literal way, because the house is taking their own experiences and whatnot from them, and so there's a lot of room for things to be kind of ad-libbed and play on the fly. That'll make some really fun things. And those are the kinds of things that I love, because they're going to last. They're going to have an effect on the whole rest of your campaign, even long after you've left the Darkest House, right? This isn't just like a fire and forget kind of adventure. It's something that's going to, maybe for good or maybe for bad, last with the characters for a long time.
I was very curious when I played, in the hour afterwards, we got to chat about the game itself. And one of the questions that I thought about was, how's this going to affect your character when you go back to your normal campaign? Because there's without giving spoilers, there's some really weird stuff going on that can have a lasting effect on, not only your character, but the entire group. So that whole dynamic of you playing this game within a game is very interesting to me.
And Charles gave away a really cool one, and I don't want to give it away, but yeah. All I can tell people is go to the art room. That's all I can say. it's just so...
Yeah, it isn't too much of a spoiler to say that part of the game mechanics in the house system involve, like, you can, as a player, you pretty early on realize that the house has got its own agenda and whatnot, but it's got power. And you learn how you can call upon the house to aid you, right? But as you do that, you get what are called dooms. And the more dooms you have when you leave the house, the worse things are going to be. Right? There's going to be some lingering effects. There's going to be some,
Before we go off a little further, when's the Kickstarter end? Because everybody in chat, if you haven't backed it, please do after this interview, of course. But please do go back to Kickstarter. When's the end date of the
April
Kickstarter?
2nd. It's a Friday. It'll be late afternoon Central Time, I think.
Yeah, and we've hitting those stretch goals, so the more people that back, the more cool stuff that's going to be added to this product. And so we really need everybody to get out there and back this, because I want all the cool extra stuff. I'm selfish and greedy. So
oh yeah, me too. You know, we
Oh,
always
man.
get to everything level. So yeah, I got it all. I want it all. I want all the extra rooms. I want the halls.
But
You know, and
before, oh, no,
it's
go
worth mentioning that the stuff that you get in there's only 2 backer levels this time, but the stuff that you get in the higher level backer level uh, is Kickstarter exclusive. You're not going to be able to get it unless you back the Kickstarter. So keep that in mind too.
You hear
Oh,
that, guys?
Shauna's birthday. That's the second is Shauna's birthday, isn't it?
It is, yeah. How did you know that?
Oh, someone said it in the chat. It was Josh
Yeah, shit. So
from
this
the
Shauna's
I
Cypher
think
birthday,
Unlimited.
right?
Shanna
It is
posted
Shauna's
it on
birthday.
Twitter saying that it was ending on her birthday as well.
Right.
Oh,
All right,
man.
so we're gonna move on to
Hold on, I was
our,
gonna ask something
No,
before.
I wasn't gonna ask anything. It was just a small comment based on what we were talking about the Dooms mechanic and leaving the house. Just a quick comment on that. Just that seeing it as a GM. Again, I don't know how it's actually gonna resolve via the mechanics of the Dark House, but as a GM of it, I can see a lot of fun possibilities in explaining what's going on with them once they return to their main setting or main game or whatever have you. That seems like a fun avenue to explore as a GM.
I think it will be. I think that GMs will want to get kind of creative and do some stuff that'll be fun for, months to go.
Alright,
we'll move on to our
other questions before Dean, but one last final push. If you haven't backed the Darkest House, please do go out there, check it out. I got to play it firsthand, and like I said in my part of my French, it's spooky as shit. You're gonna love it. So please go back, and it's a great game, and it's a totally innovative way to run adventures. I've never experienced adventure in this format like this, so it's like a one in a lifetime experience. So please go back it.
Thank you.
Yeah, and we will say thank you again for thinking of us when you want to do stuff like this, because we love being first on the scene about stuff anyway. But I'm gonna move on to our next set of questions. We're gonna shift gears just a little bit because you are Monte Cook, and I mean, even though we could talk about the Darkest House all night, there's so much more that you've done and that you do. So
We are doing other stuff, huh? You're right.
so we're gonna narrow it down to some MCG related stuff.
Sure.
You've been known for pushing the envelope. You've done it, even in other other systems and so on and so forth. But with Numenera being and the alternate generic system, Cipher System, surrealism masterpiece that is Invisible Sun, and of course the soon to be released Tolus. Do you have a favorite project among all of the stuff that you've done, or is it just like on to the next one?
Dean, do you have kids? Do you have a favorite kid?
Not really.
No, of course you don't. No, I don't. I don't have a favorite, right? My favorite is whatever I'm working on right now.
Right.
Because that's what I got to have all my, excitement and interest and fire in is what I'm working on right now. And, I always tell people, right, that like the thing that I'm working on right now has to be the coolest thing that I've ever done in my brain right now, or else I shouldn't do it. Right.
Right.
If I'm doing something that's not as good as something I did before, why bother?
Exactly. I get you. I can appreciate that as a creator.
That's my philosophy.
Well.
Don't play favorites.
Great.
I mean, but from a design perspective, Invisible Sun, come on. That was pretty incredible.
It was totally there's a lot of love in Invisible Sun. I hope that comes through, because that was long hours of a lot of extra work on everybody at MCG's part, right? We poured the hours into that thing like nothing before, and really nothing since. Although Talus comes really close. Yeah, we really love it. That's the game that I'm still playing most consistently. Although my Claim the Sky superhero Cypher game starts up here in about a week. But Invisible Sun's what I have been playing most recently.
You got an extra character sheet?
So yeah, I love it all.
Well, I can honestly, and I can relate to that being a creator myself, and also, in the respect that, I get it about that passion that you got to pour into those projects. But, like little things like you just said, though, you're talking about Claim the Sky, I love superheroes. That's like my huge passion. So I'm looking so forward to that. So is there anything that you just like that you got sitting on a precipice that you might be looking forward to?
For Claim the Sky?
Yeah.
Yeah,
you want to share that with us?
So here's the thing that I was just writing about last night for Claim the Sky. There's a chapter in the book called Comic Book Storytelling. And there's all these different ways in which comic book stories are kind of their own thing. And so what I was writing about was encouraging the GM to think of, even as the game system or rather game session that you're going to run, think of it as an issue of a comic book. Maybe like even give it a name the way they used to give every issue a name, right? And describe things in terms of, when the villain shows up, you say, okay, there's a splash page, right? Full page panel. And here's the, and the villain is appearing and he's doing this, right? And he's saying this thing, right? And encouraging players to do that too, right? So instead of just saying, I use my gravity powers on the war robot, right? The player might say, okay, so there's a panel and you see the war robot, and then there's a panel right after it that looks just like it, except the war robot is just smashed into the ground, right? And it's because I've just used my gravity powers and made it, 100 times heavier than it was. And so, just encouraging that different kind of play, I think would be really, really fun. In fact, I've done it, so I think it is really, really fun to run superheroes that way. Just kind of gives everything just a big kind of dramatic and very visual flair, right? Because if there's one thing about superheroes, whether you're talking about comics or movies or anything, right, it's really visual. So you want to make sure you're describing everything, and everything is huge and, explosions and energy rays and, all that kind of good stuff.
That's actually awesome. I've never thought of, and again, what you call it. I haven't played too much in the superhero genre outside of, a couple games under Dean's, GM-ship. But that is such an awesome way to describe what's going on in maybe a superhero type game, where you describe a little art panel, or maybe again the full page like blowout. There's some holographic shading in the background. Like you can go all out with a description of a page like that. Like especially if you're a comic buff, like you can see like either way. I really love that idea, and I'm definitely gonna use it.
I like that. I'm gonna add that, something about, and this issue has a gold foil cover, right? So it's gonna be important.
Exactly. It's the variant issue cover.
That's right. It's the variant cover.
Oh man.
We're super excited for Claim the Sky, Heroes of Cipher System. Like that's right up our alley. For the people that don't know or haven't backed it, could you tell them a little bit about Heroes of Cipher System, and what's the difference between that and Unmasked, say?
Right. So Heroes of Cipher System was a Kickstarter we did last year. Basically funded 3 different books. The biggest one is Claim the Sky, which is superheroes, right? Just as straightforward as that. Superheroes in the Cipher System. There's a section in the CSR that is about superheroes, but this just magnifies it all out in the same way that like Bruce did with Stars Are Fire and science fiction, right? And just kind of blossom that all out and give a whole setting ready to be used. That's Claim the Sky. And probably one of the coolest parts about Claim the Sky is something that Sean Reynolds is working on, where we kind of go through just like every sort of archetype of superhero, right? So like, oh, you want to be someone with bug powers, that maybe it was bitten by a radioactive bug of some kind. Here's how, here's the descriptors you might want to choose from. Here's the type, here's the focus you want, here's how to use your power shifts. And it's just kind of all spelled out for you, because that's the one thing that people have said to me most about Cipher System superheroes is, I don't know how to make the character that I want to play. And this is going to tell you exactly how to do that.
Yes.
Heroes of the Cipher System also had 2 other books. One is called The Origin, which is like sort of lower power superheroes, more like like if you remember the old TV show from like 10 years ago called Heroes, or it's more like real people get superpowers and have to figure out what to do with them, right? So no capes. In fact, for a while we were going to call it No Capes.
Incredibles fans would have loved that.
Exactly. But so it's more like, you get kind of maybe get involved with espionage and government conspiracies and all kinds of stuff like that, right? So it's a little grittier, a little darker. And then First Responders is basically how to handle real life crises in the Cipher system. So you want to have a hurricane and have that be as interesting as an orc invasion or whatever it is you're doing. Here's how you do that. So it's really kind of it's its own thing, right? You can have characters that are designed specifically for that product, but it's also to be used with whatever Cipher System thing you're doing, right? You can use this in Numenera, you can use this in Claim the Sky, Cipher System, anything, right? It's going to be simple and straightforward. So that's Heroes of the Cipher System. There were a few other things too, but that's the big bulk of it.
When we had Sean on, when I heard about First Responders, I thought of immediately. I said, "Hey, this is D20 Modern from Cipher System. This is is going to allow you to play tell those stories that tell those, not for lack of a better word, mundane job stories. And I think it's like the perfect book for that. I'm excited to really see what First Responders does. Because I think it's going to add a whole new layer to people like us that like to tell, not necessarily like the fantastical stories, but more of
a grounded story.
Yeah,
right.
More of a grounded story, and this is going to be the perfect supplement book for you for that.
What's kind of funny too, Monty, I just wanted to throw out there too, it's kind of funny that you talked about Origins like you did. I literally ran and that's what I called it, the guys that played it, and I ran a 8-issue mini campaign, and it was an origin story. So nice. I think I'll just go ahead and retool that, start a whole campaign with the Origins books, so it's gonna be good stuff.
Cool.
So thanks again, man.
I'm sorry, guy. You was gonna say something, Monty?
Nope.
Oh, you have the Heroes of Cipher System Kickstarter, which we're super psyched about. But there's another, really big Kickstarter project that we're even more excited about. Tolus. I understand that it's going to be in the hands of the Kickstarter backers soon. So is it true? First off, is it true that Tolus was your original home game?
When I designed, when I worked on the 3rd edition design team for 3rd edition D&D, this was the game that I ran in order to test those mechanics. So it wasn't my first home game, but it was, I think, probably the longest running single campaign that I had, or the single campaign setting that I ran stuff in. I actually ran 3 different campaigns in the setting, but so back probably from like 1998 or 99 to 2006 or 7. Sorry, I don't have those precise dates anymore. But right around in there was when I ran this game, and back then when I started, I was still working at Wizards of the Coast, which meant that my game group, now today is like a who's who of the game industry, really. But at the time it was just me and my friends.
Nice.
And just a last question about Tolus is why did you decide to convert it to Cipher System and 5e?
Well,
go ahead.
Because because people have been asking about it for a really long time. Enough people had asked about it. Basically, ever since it was made for 3rd edition D&D, and then 4th edition came out, Pathfinder came out, and people kept saying, "Oh, can you make this? Can you convert this? Can you convert this?" And I said, "No, I didn't really want to do that." And I guess it took. I'll be honest. It took a little bit of arm twisting because I'm not a big fan of going back and looking at something that I have already done. But enough people had said, look at all this material, all this great art, the format and all the presentation and everything. But nobody can use it anymore because nobody's playing 3rd edition anymore. And, I was like, okay, right. And to be honest, right, it probably took this long for my fingers to heal from all the typing it took to write. There's like 500,000 words in Talus. So,
well, you think about it, Monty.
A book, it's a weapon.
So, Monty, if you really think about it, man, you set a precedent with Talus in the first place. It was a forerunner to Invisible Sun. You're the innovator and the king of the deluxe edition game material. I don't think anybody had ever had anything like that, until that moment.
And trust me, I can honestly say there are so many people happy that you're revisiting Talus, not only for 5e but for Cypher. And I've known Dean for like 3 years now, and he's never shut up about Talus since the day I met him. So trust me.
I bought it way back when you did the first that first crowdfunding, and I bought it. And like I said, he'll tell you, I was basically in tears because someone stole my original book.
Oh no!
Yeah, they stole. I probably lost about $10,000 in gaming material. Somebody broke into my storage facility and stole all my gaming material. So for you to revisit it, and I get to get my little hands on it again, I'm absolutely stoked. So yeah.
And before we move on to the next question here, I just want to chime in and say that again, I'm relatively new, especially compared to these guys, to the role-playing game scene, community, whatnot, and I've never played or seen the original Talus in person. I hear it's a massive tome, essentially.
672 pages.
And I'm quite excited to see it for Cypher System. So again, I'm one of those people who are thanking you for revisiting it.
When you do a book, particularly a book like Talus, where you're investing a lot of money in the printing and everything, the printer sends you what's called a white book, which is it's exactly the book except there's no printing on it. Right, all the pages are blank, the cover is just white. It's just showing you the paper quality and the cover quality and the bookmarks and everything. So when I first got that, I wanted to make sure that it wasn't flimsy, right? Because I hate it when my books fall apart. And so I said, what happens if somebody just picks this up and just throws it across the room, right? Is that going to break the spine? And the answer was no, but it will put a hole in your wall.
It's just like, I wonder how sturdy this book is. Breaks the wall. Well then.
Hey, Al, no, he didn't throw it like this. He literally had to throw it.
Man, you need 2 hands to throw the Talus.
True. I probably did. Yeah.
I'm dying over here.
Yeah.
Oh.
Go ahead.
Yeah, for the next one, because I was so, give me a second. I just have the mental imagery of just eating this giant blank book too. It has nothing on it. But either way. We've been touching on a lot of your big works like Talus, Claim the Sky, now The Darkest House. And, with the amount of stuff y'all are putting out, a lot of people don't realize that you guys at Monte Cook Games are actually a relatively small design team. It's essentially just a 4-person operation as far as that goes. We got you, Bruce, Shauna, and Sean, if that's correct. I could be wrong.
The designers, yep.
Yeah.
The Mount Rushmore.
Yeah, exactly. But based on this amount of work and all that, how do you guys decide who works on what? How does the work get distributed? Whatnot like that, especially with such a tiny team.
Well, so I wear a few different hats at MCG, and one of them is creative director, which means I kind of lead that team. And so I mean, everybody gets to have input. Everyone gets to say, oh, I'm really excited about this thing. And a lot of times it'll be like back with the Cipher System Kickstarter we did, where we did Stay Alive, Stars of Fire, God Forsaken. Like, those things all came about because Sean said, I have this cool idea for a horror setting, right? and Shauna was like, I want to do something with fairy tales, and etc. So that plays a part, but ultimately I decide who works on what, just from an administrative point of view, because somebody's got to do it. And usually it's more than one person wants to do a thing, right? Like I mean, like, I'll speak for myself, right? I want to write everything. I want to work on all these things, but of course that's impossible.
I mean, that's one of the biggest misconceptions about MCG as a whole. Not only your design team is the size that it is, and you put out the amount of product that you do, but the company as a whole isn't more than 10 to 15 people, and
10 right now.
From the outside looking in, a lot of people tend to think that you guys have like 30 or 40 people working for you, and we have to be like, no, it's not that
we
big
have
of a
this
company.
huge skyscraper in downtown Seattle that we own the whole thing, and our private helicopters on the top, and
I mean, I tend to think is that you guys always hit your Kickstarter marks, and you have a constant release stream of products coming out, so it gives it gives people the idea that, hey, this is a big company, and they got 30 people working in cubicles.
And also the quality. And that's something we can't say enough. The quality of your products is unmatched.
well, thank you.
Always I love them. As you can see behind me, look at my shelf. I mean, I love your stuff. I love your work. With that being said, what do we have to look forward to, like, in the lines of like your next innovation? You got anything like percolating that you could share with us about that? Or even better, maybe can you talk about Title Blades or something?
Sure, we can talk about Title Blades. Title is the book is designed by Shauna. It's been something that she's been working on a long time, and it's all based on a successful and really cool board game called Title Blades. And basically, they wanted to do a Cypher setting, much in the same way that there's been Shotguns and Sorcery and Vert and some of the other things that people have taken the Cipher system and made their own game with. And they want to do the same thing, except they didn't have access to experienced game designers, RPG game designers. They're board game people. They do board games really well, but and so we sort of just worked out a deal where we would design this book for them, and then they would publish it. It's their book, but Shauna's designing it. So it's kind of going to be an MCG product, but it's also going to be a Title Blades project. And but if you're someone who's already invested in some Cipher System stuff, it's going to very much feel like it's an MCG product, and it's going to be a complete game, uses Cipher, and the world is cool. The whole world is a series of islands, and so it's a very aquatic setting. There's a whole bunch of different species that you can play.
Turtle people.
Many of them are sort of based on different kinds of aquatic animals, it's really cool. And the art, again, all provided by them, is beautiful, but it has a very different style than what you're used to seeing in an MCG product. It's a little lighter, I would say, but I'm really excited about it.
They had me at Turtle People when I saw them.
Yep.
Oh, will that be distributed through the Monte Cook Game Store? So if someone isn't necessarily, would they be able to purchase it from your website?
I don't remember, but I'm pretty sure the answer is yes. That even though they'll be publishing it, I'm sure we'll have some in our store.
Oh, that's
Would it
awesome.
be an
But I'm not
aquatic
positive. I can't say that with 100% certainty.
With a game like that being aquatic based, I'm looking forward to the turtle people sound interesting, but personally, I'm hoping for some sharks, some sharkmen,
There's all kinds of different cool creatures and lots of fun things to do underwater and on boats, and yeah, it's gonna be cool.
I mean, I'm sorry.
Oh,
I said sweet.
it looks like Charles confirmed that yes, we'll have it. I'm assuming he means
good.
Title Blade. So yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Hi, Charles.
Hey, Charles. We have Charles on next week, by the way. He's coming back for his third trip. He enjoyed the punishment of being on the show.
We love Charles.
It's no secret that MCG's business model has always been funding your projects through Kickstarter. Your guys have had wonderful success. I think you're probably the pioneers of RPGs when it comes to Kickstarter. In your opinion, can you tell us why you think that is? Your guys been so successful. And do you guys ever plan to release any products not funded on Kickstarter?
We have done some products that weren't part of a Kickstarter, and I don't think you'll see a lot in the future, because we love Kickstarter partially because it allows us to directly interface with the people who are actually playing and buying the games directly. There isn't sort of a middleman. We love our retailers, and we have some great people out there who are supporting Cypher System and other MCG games in their stores. But we don't want them to get to do all the customer interface, right? We want to talk to some people too, and the thing is that it's two-way, right? When we do a Kickstarter, if you get into our comments and say, hey, what would be really cool is if you guys did this, I can't promise that we're going to do it every time, but I can promise that we're reading those comments, and plenty of things. Like, I don't want to name any names, but there have been a couple of guys who have been saying you got to do Cypher System superheroes for a really long time. Lo and behold, last fall we listened, right? There's a lot of truth to that.
I think I can tell you honestly, those guys really appreciate it. They really do.
It took us like 3 videos, but we finally got in there.
Oh, so funny. Oh boy.
One of the things I love about Kickstarter, and your guys' Kickstarters in particular, is that you get so much bang for your buck. I know if I back at the everything level, I'm essentially getting 3 times what I'm putting in product. And there's not many companies that could fulfill that and on time like your guys do. I think that's why, you have this huge Kickstarter support group, because everyone knows that, hey, if I invest in this on day one, I know I'm going to get my product, and 2, I'm going to get way more than I put in actual value.
And 3, it's going to, in no uncertain terms, it's going to kick ass.
But that's
that goes without saying. That goes without saying.
It works both ways, though. Like you guys brought up Invisible Sun earlier. Like, hands down, just no BS. Invisible Sun wouldn't exist if it wasn't for Kickstarter, because it was so expensive to produce. We would have had to put up so much money to make that game and get that game printed and shipped over here, and then hoped that some stores would be interested in carrying it, right? Like, you just couldn't do that, right? There's just too much risk. But with Kickstarter, we know, we can look at the backer numbers and say, okay, well, we know, we need at least that many. We've got the money up front to pay for the printing. It's such a boon to a publisher like us, and it's not just us, right? Lots of people have realized that this is a great way to get product out there, and it's a great way to find out if this is what people really want, right? Like if we do a Kickstarter and we don't get very many backers, like that tells us something before we ever, sink a bunch of resources into it. Now, thankfully, that hasn't really happened to us, but if it did, right? Like, I don't know, put together some, stupid thing that nobody wants, right? But better to know that now than when it's all written and done and printed, and then been like, oh, nobody wanted this.
I know
that's the way publishing used to work.
I know Invisible Sun had to be scary because, that was unlike any other game out there. One, the price point, and two, the innovation, the style of game it was. I know it must have been a little scary moment releasing it on Kickstarter, wondering if people are going to back this.
It was, right. I believe that RPG products, you can look at them just in the same way that you look at any product. And there are people out there who are looking for economic value, right? And so to service them, we have things like the $25 Numenera starter set, right, which gives you everything you need to know how to play that, right, with about as cheap as you can possibly expect an RPG to be nowadays. But then there's people who are looking for more, right, and unless you make something for them, they're not getting serviced, right? There's people who want a big deluxe kind of thing like that. So it was scary, but the scare was in, how many of those people are there, right? How many people are willing to put together that kind of money, even though like you get so much bang for your buck in Invisible Sun, because once you start looking at price points like that, we can just start throwing stuff in that box and fill it up and make it, this giant heavy box full of cool stuff. But I don't think that anybody is necessarily paying for just the prestige of it, right? Like the same way, like if you buy a high-end sports car, some of the price point is just, because I get to drive this thing, right? But I think you get what you really pay for, and our philosophy is let's make all kinds of different products because there are all kinds of different gamers.
Yeah, we did a video on the value of not recently, it was just about a year ago, but we did a video on the value of every MCG Kickstarter, and Invisible Sun was the highest rated, as in, we had a method in which we rated them, like value for money in terms of product received. And I believe Invisible Sun was almost at 3.5 to 1 of what you put in. Right. And on top of that, it's like what you said, you have essentially 2 or 3 years of gameplay in this one box. So you can't even quantify a value on your time of gameplay as well, which, so you're absolutely correct. It's well worth the money.
Well, I can say that with most of your products, though, Monty. Numenera is a prime example. If you look at Numenera and what you gave us in just Discovery Destiny, and if you look at the Ninth World Guide, without adding any of your other products, you give so much fodder to work from. It's enough information to inspire you, but then there's all this open space for you to create, and then you start looking at like the N2 series, those things, you guys have mastered that, and I really appreciate that aspect, So, I mean, I think you guys got a awesome, ideology when you start putting forth the gaming material for us.
Thank you. We definitely think, right, that like if somebody comes away with something that they paid for and they're like, well, this really wasn't worth the money I put forth, they're not gonna back the next Kickstarter. They're not gonna buy the next product. It's in our best interest to keep everyone not just happy, but like, oh my gosh, look at all this, right? So as long as we can afford to do that, and like we were just talking about Talus, right? That's sort of the key thing that made that's kind of the idea of what sparked Talus was. I looked at, like, at the time there were all these D&D settings. You'd buy maybe like a big book, and then you'd get a couple of adventures, and you'd get a couple of different source books on organizations and stuff like that. And pretty soon, you have a big stack of Forgotten Realms or Eberron or whatever books, and you've probably paid $400 for all those books. And so the idea was, well, what if we just gave you all of that in one book, right? We could actually make it, in the end, cheaper for you and for us, and give you everything, right? So Talus is not just a campaign setting, right? It's a campaign that, if you're playing D&D, it's going to take you up to level 20. And if you're playing Cypher, it's going to give you more than you're ever going to be able to use when your characters are 6th tier and wondering what they're going to do next, right? It's just so much stuff in there, so much stuff.
Yeah. Oh
yeah, I'm really curious to see how the Cypher conversion is going to be. I backed at everything on both levels anyways, but that's because with Cypher Unlimited, that's what we are.
You can just compare them page by page then.
But I'm not going to lie, I'm going to play it in Cypher for sure.
What you call it? Now that we've touched on Numenera a little bit, and I see the chat is excited that they're saying Numenera is fantastic, all this stuff. It just kind of begs my point a little to the forelight, which is Numenera is one of your most beloved settings and one of your most beloved franchises. People just absolutely adore it. Can you tell us if there's anything else in store for the future of the Ninth World? And is there anything that from the Discovery and Destiny books that didn't make it in that you had hoped would make it in?
Well, Numenera is definitely not done. So let's just put that right there.
If you would have said that, our show would have been good night.
No, look for more. I mean, Numenera is by far and away our most successful product everything. So definitely more Numenera, and it's definitely always going to be one of my big loves, and the weirdness of the science fantasy aspect of it, and everything. So is there anything that didn't make it into Discovery and Destiny? I'm going to say not really. I mean, there might have been a couple of small things, but really having the two, moving from a 1-book game to a 2-book game really gave us the luxury of really feeling like we were giving everybody everything that they needed and wanted to start a campaign and take it in a lot of different interesting directions. So I'm really happy. I'm really pleased with the content of it and what's in there.
That's
awesome. Those are beautiful books.
Yeah.
Normally, we got 3 sets.
Normally, before we go on to our rapid fire questions, I normally ask you what we have to look forward to in the future, but you've given us a few of those things. So my final question for you tonight would be, overall, has it been successful with you doing the transition, doing D&D products, 5e products, right alongside your Cypher products and so on and so forth? Has that been a really good endeavor?
It has, right? I mean, you've got me, you've got Bruce Cordell, you've got Sean Reynolds, all on our design team, right? All with lots and lots of experience with D&D. And it was the first game for the 3 of us that we've ever played. Bruce and I go way, way back, right? We've known each other since we were 14 years old, and we met playing D&D. So there's something about that just kind of feels right. I love Cipher System. I love the new stuff that we're doing, but there's always going to be a fondness for elves and dwarves and fireballs.
Exactly. Well, I just had to ask because and the only reason I asked is because when you guys did the Arcana of the Ancients, those books have been really interesting to read through, and I could actually see some of that. Takes you back to Expedition to Barrier Peaks and all of that kind of stuff. So it's all those things, those nostalgia moments. So I like you, but you did say you were always about the next thing, but just wanted to know if you still had a soft spot for where we all started from.
Monty, before we move into our rapid fire questions, which is a quick little game we play at the end of all our videos, would you mind if we take 1 or 2 questions from the audience?
Not at all. Nope.
All right, guys in chat, could you just put question first before you put the question in chat so we can, and we're probably running a little long on time, so we'll probably take 2 or 3. So if anyone has any questions for Monty, now's the time to write it.
James Sprinks came right in. He said, Monty, have you ever thought of going to a mythology setting? If so, will you stop working?
No,
if so, I'll stop working on mine.
You mean like take an existing like mythology and make a setting or something out of it? Like I really dig the ancient Egyptian mythologies and stuff. That was always my favorite. Greek and Roman and all those guys get all the love, but yeah, there we go.
He knows what's up.
Yes. All right. So if you go ahead and hit us with a nice Egyptian setting, I'm all for it, because I'm really working on a whole Afrocentric storyline anyway.
Very cool.
Storyline. So hey, let's do it.
Dean, you want to ask the next question?
Yeah. Let's see. What's the next one is so how many houses did you have to test the luminosity of to determine that it's the darkest house?
And who said the question?
That was from Jason C.
We carefully toured the country, and we thought we found the darkest house, in Phoenix, but then we're like, no, and then we found the darkest house.
I can assure you that Phoenix could possibly house a very dark house. As someone who lives in the area right now, that is entirely possible. I drive down certain streets in Phoenix where I feel like I'm in another dimension, and this is a legit true story. It's like you ever hear those stories of someone driving down a road and then they're suddenly in a different time period or something like that. I get that feeling down this one particular road, and I'm waiting for it to happen.
I lived in Phoenix, and I can tell you, if the darkest house was there, everybody would think it was a solar hub, because it would just absorb all the light around it.
I have a question from Buddy Noche. Do you plan on hiring any more designers or working with young rising talent?
Well, we don't have any hiring plans right now, but MCG does have kind of on a rotating basis. We have an intern, usually a college age person who wants to get involved in the gaming industry, and we've had some success or rather we've seen some success in some of our previous interns have either written something for us or gone on to write in other things, and we'd really like to be a part of that. I like the idea of kind of helping people at the beginning, get a start, get a little bit of training, see what it looks like behind the curtain a little bit. But as far as like full-time people, no plans for that right now.
Right.
Before we move on to the rapid fire, there is one quick, simple little question from D-Knob Nation. I feel like it's just a fun one you could throw out a quick answer for. Could you hint at what the scariest room in the darkest house is?
To me, the scariest house in the darkest house is it involves a dollhouse. Let's just put it.
All right, that's already creeping me out.
Oh, Shauna's here. It's the doll room. Hi, Shauna.
Come on out. You guys know them old porcelain dolls with the dingy white dresses on, and they look at you. You're like,
Oh man.
So, well, guys, we know we have like more questions out there, but we do apologize because we are like running a little bit long. We don't want to keep Monty all night.
I'm
Even though we would
long-winded.
love to, you know.
All right,
you guys-
Monty. This is the rapid fire questions. Are you ready? This is the
I'm
part
ready.
of the show where we pull out your essence, we stretch it on the table for the whole world to see. Drum
All
roll,
right.
please. Al, you usually give us a drum roll. Al, ask the first question. It's a quick one answer. You elaborate as much as you want, or just give us a quick short answer. But it's usually a yes or no. I mean, a 2-part question. So go ahead, Al.
Player or GM?
No, GM.
Pull punches or TPK?
Oh wow, that really depends on the game that I'm playing. I certainly have done my share of TPKs, but yeah, it really depends.
I wouldn't want to play Tola. He'll just throw the book, the Tola's book at you.
There we go.
A true TPK.
Total player.
Online or in-person gaming?
Right now, I got to tell you, after a year in lockdown, I'm dying to be in the same room with some people and rolling dice. So I'm gonna say in person.
Definitely how I think how a bunch of us feel about it. Ooh, but announce the difficulty number or keep it secret.
Unless I'm demoing for brand new people and showing them how it works, I keep it secret because I'm mean.
Salty or sweet snacks at the table?
I'm gonna have to go with sweet, I think.
Yes, I usually go with both.
That's a good answer.
RP or combat?
RP, if I've got to make that choice. Combat's a lot of fun, though.
Definitely is.
PDFs or physical books?
I'm one of those people that I really like. I really see a lot of value in both. I guess you can't see because I got the green screen, but I really like my shelves of physical books. I like the feel of a book. I like to be able to take a book with me and hold it in my hand. But wow, when I'm sitting at my computer and I need to look something up, I open up the PDF because I can find stuff faster in there, and it's just so nice. And I can copy text, and yeah.
Pen and paper notes or digital?
I keep wanting to try to become a digital note person and have like some kind of cool, I know there's a lot of note apps, and I got an iPad with the Apple Pencil thing where you can write on it and everything, but I still go back to my regular notebooks all the time and am writing with a pen.
Nice.
It's definitely I can't shake that either.
Pre-written adventures or original content?
Well, in terms of what I actually use, it's almost always original content because most of the time I'm playing something that will become a pre-written adventure. So it's a pre-written adventure.
I was about to say it's kind of a weird question to ask the guy who makes all the stuff, right? Like that's kind of weird, right?
But I love pre-written adventures, and let me tell you really quick why. It's because, like, to be honest, that's how I learned how to play D&D. It was not in reading the rule books. It was reading a couple of adventures because it told me, oh, okay, this is what game's actually going to be like, right? It's going to be, this room, and then there's a trap, and right, and so I that's how I learned, and I think that that's the best way to learn a game system is to look and see how it's actually going to play at the table.
Monty's such a boss because I would have just been like, have you seen my catalog? Mic drop.
Like we said at the beginning, it's the illest pen game in the RPG industry. I mean, we're gonna wrap stuff up, but I gotta say, from me and even the guys, we really mean that. I mean, if you just look at what your creativity has brought to the industry over these past years, it's phenomenal. And the other thing I really like about it is that it's consistent. You know, stuff we didn't even bring up, like Iron Heroes. You know, loved it. Still have my Iron Heroes books. Still look at them periodically. They were the inspiration for me writing gritty rules for Cypher. You know, gritting it up. You know, things like that. So thank you. You know, for being here. Thank you for continuing to do what you do. You're always welcome on our show. Please come back.
I love it.
You got any final thoughts?
All I gotta say is, Monte, you've been an inspiration of mine since I was, not to date myself, but since I was like 16, 17, you know, from Planescape as a kid.
You're making me feel old.
Monty, we're the same age, so don't feel
I'm
bad.
only like 7 years younger than you, by the way. But we, you know, there wouldn't be a Cypher Unlimited without a Monte Cook Games. You know, the reason why we got into this in the first place is our love for everything MCG. So just from that, from the server alone, on behalf of everyone on the server, you know, we just want to thank you for making products that, you know, we all enjoy and we love to spend our, you know, free time with, and, you know, to make a product that makes so many people happy. You know, we truly, truly appreciate it.
Well, you know, it's right back at you guys, right? We're so grateful because I've found, and this sounds like I'm pandering, but it's not. But I'm not. I mean, I'm telling you the God's honest truth. Like the fans and the gamers for Cypher players and all MCG products, like are some of the nicest people that I've ever met. And online, it can be hard to find a nice, civil place to talk about the games you love. And you guys have provided this place for all these fans to come together and share in the things that they love and share ideas and, you know, kind of, again, give them a safe place to do it online, which is, you know, it's hard to come by nowadays. And that's so awesome. We're so appreciative of that.
But Anthony, before you go into your little spiel for us, I want to have my little last word thingy. But that is definitely true, Monty. Like I've been a part of online communities ever since I was like maybe 12, 13, very young. I've been always on my computer talking to people. The amount of the lack of toxicity, I guess. Whatever. The amount of toxicity in the CU in general and Cypher Unlimited is so low compared to any other community I've been in. It's actually quite insane. Like, just thinking of it from a statistical point of view, just the fact that we have so many people that are willing to discuss things and even have disagreements in a civil manner is kind of outrageous. Like from a statistical standpoint, like normally there'd be trolls and people just dissenting just to dissent, just to be jerks, but there's like none of that. It's pretty freaking nice. Like, yeah. And one other thing before I let Anthony go do his thing was just thank you in general so much for Cipher System and just for making the stuff you make. Anthony will tell you, he introduced me into role-playing games in general, and he'll tell you, I was kind of into it with 5e and whatnot, playing D&D, but as soon as he introduced me to Cypher System, it was all over. Like, I fell in love, like, my imagination was going all over the place. It was what I was expecting from D&D, like, if that makes sense. Like, I was expecting this whole fanciful storytelling, having fun with my friends, telling any story we could possibly tell, and Cypher System delivers that. Hands down.
That's great.
Yeah. Anthony, before you finish up, just really quick, there is one last question and I think it should be asked. Is there a Cipher System bestiary somewhere possibly on the horizons since we didn't get it through Heroes of the Kickstarter?
A Cipher System, the bestiary. Well, you know, when we put stuff on as stretch goals, it's often because it's something we really want to do. So you might see that show up down the line. You know, we really want to do a Cipher System bestiary. And so, yeah, that's not off the table.
You heard that? That's so awesome news.
Where you go, Hutch Down 81, you got your answer. Anthony, take it away.
If you like Cipher System and you like what we do, you know, you visit it, give us a little donation on Ko-fi. Our videos are always free, but like we always said, it helps us out with little things like Zoom costs. And go, follow us here on Twitch or go to our YouTube channel and, give us a follow there, like, share, and subscribe our videos. It helps us, bring the algorithm up and more attention to our videos, and lets us get great guests like Monty here. Or visit our online store and get some cool Cipher Unlimited merch. Look cool. We sent Sean a Predation t-shirt. We got to figure out a t-shirt to send Monty.
Right, yeah, she loves that shirt.
No, Jude, we got our new shirt. You said it. The illest pen game in the industry. That's the new shirt.
Oh yeah, the illest pen game in the industry. Yeah,
that's right. That's what I'm saying. That's the new shirt.
So give us a follow on Twitch or go to our Facebook group. And last but not least, join the Cipher Unlimited Discord. We have almost 4,000 members. We have games being run every day. People talking about all things MCG, whether it's Invisible Sun, Numenera, The Strange. Doesn't matter what setting you enjoy. There's people talking about it. Come join the family. We one big family there. Everybody, we all inclusive. We love everyone. So please follow us there as well. Thanks.
And yeah, thank you again, Monty, so much for coming on. I dropped links in the chat just now where everyone can reach you. We got your Twitter on there. We got the Monte Cook Games Twitter on there. We got the Monte Cook Games website. And of course, the Darkest House Kickstarter, which you guys should definitely back if you have not yet. We want those yummy stretch goals. But yeah.
April 2nd's the last day to back, so please do it before then.
Happy birthday early, Shauna. I'll be talking to you.
And thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you again, Monty, for coming on. And from us at the CU, we will see you later.